I'm here with Kerri Rawson. She is the daughter of the BTK Killer. He is a serial killer that killed 10 people in 31 years. And Kerri, we were chatting about the fact that it was big in the news that he was a Christian and a God-fearing man. Tell me about faith growing up.
So I grew up in a small non-traditional American church, and it was very important that we went every Sunday. You know, took a bath on a Saturday and dressed up on a Sunday. It was very important to my father, and he ushered in communion in church, and even served as an assistant pastor and then a president. I think, though, it's also important to remember, just because someone is going to church regularly, it doesn't mean they're a Christian, that they have the personal relationship with Christ, which would be my definition of a Christian. I also think it's important to remember, even if you're going to church, it doesn't mean you're religious. Some people just do it because that's what their family does, or it's what is expected of them. And in the case of my father, I think he wanted people to respect that, like that was one more level of respect that people had because he was a churchgoer. But I did not know a man that had a personal relationship with God. My mom was very faithful. You know, I shared that with my mom since I was little, but my dad never had that.
And you didn't feel like you had it either. Like, you just didn't feel like that was part of your upbringing.
No, I mean, because you end up rebelling against it as a teenager because you're forced every Sunday to do this. You're forced into confirmation class for 2 years. You're forced to sit in the wooden pew and stand up and say things that you don't have any connection to. So you learn about Jesus on a flannel board, but you never learn about Jesus, like the relationship. You don't know how to pray. So I walked away from my faith, and then early in college, I went on a 6-day hiking trip in the Grand Canyon with my father, and we got in way over our heads, and you know, we all could have lost our lives down there. And that was when, again, I was crying out, Abba, Father, like the first time I was praying, and I said, if you're out there, I don't even know if you're out there, but if you're out there, I need help. And as soon as I started praying, God helped us. He found us water, he found us camping sites, he took care of us. And when I was down there, like within 3 or 4 days, I knew God existed, and I could see him. Like, I was looking up at the Milky Way, and I was like, you made this, didn't you? And then I was like, you know what? I need to like ask for forgiveness for my sins and come back to you and your son. And I said, if you can get me out of this canyon, I'll be yours the rest of my life. And you shouldn't make a deal with God. Because like 2 days later, I got out of the canyon, and as soon as I stepped on the path, he was like knocking down on me, and he's like, yeah, you're mine now. And it was 8 years later when, you know, the earth fell out on me with my dad. So, I mean, where would I be if I hadn't had that with God, those 8 years with him? He knew what was coming.
And that faith carried you through.
Yeah, the faith kept me alive. That's what kept me alive.
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing your story. You're going to want to read more about this, A Serial Killer's Daughter, My Story of Hope, Love, and Overcoming with Kerri Rawson. Thanks so much for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.